Has anyone seen the Infinity tablet?
The twins are watching the entire 6th series of Dexter on it.
Have they done their homework?
Oh, they don't do homework in primary school anymore. It stresses them out.
I want to read the online news. Your iPhone's going off. Probably another meme from your sister.
It's the door.
What?
There's someone at the door.
Emailing, you mean?
No. Someone's physically at the door to our house. It's probably free light bulbs.
Yes?
Yes, hello. I'm collecting for the ABC.
It's a bit late, isn't it?
Well, probably, yes, but the lost causes are the ones worth fighting for, aren't they?
We don't want any light bulbs.
No, the ABC makes quality television and radio programming.
We already subscribe to Netflix, Stan, Foxtel and Crackle, so
No, but this is free, sir.
Not if I give you any money, it isn't.
Yeah, well, normally it's free, sir, but I'm sure you've heard of the recent disaster.
The triennial funding thing.
Yes, $20 million cut. The biggest threat is to our news department, sir.
We don't need any news. We're already signed up with News Corp.
No, but what about the people who can't afford subscription providers, sir?
What?
The ABC is accessible to everybody.
If I go to a restaurant, I want to order from the menu, not line up at the buffet with a bowl with everyone else.
Yeah, but the quality of our buffet is excellent, sir. Here, look at our menu.
What sort of programs are we talking about? What's Q&A?
Well, that's a group of people sitting around talking about politics.
Gruen.
That's a group of people sitting around talking about advertising.
QI.
People sitting around talking about things of interest.
Agony of life.
Sitting around talking about nothing of interest at all.
Well, I like non-sitting programs where people actually do something.
Drama?
Yes.
Oh, well, then you'll love this. What about this? Dr. Blake's Mysteries. It's about a man with a beard who returns home from the war to run his father's medical practice.
Well, what's the mystery, apart from how it got commissioned in the first place? Look, you're competing with Game of Thrones, man. Where's the permissive borderline pornography we expect when we pay for moving images on a screen these days?
Janet King's a lesbian.
I'm listening.
And she fronts a royal commission into the gun culture.
Oh, for God's sake. It's exactly this sort of right-on lefty worthiness which is turning people away from you in droves to epic fail YouTube clips and of football. Where's your subversive thinking outside the triangle topical news satire? I'd pay to see that.
We do have Mad as Hell.
And what's that?
Well, it's like a comedy version of The Weekly.
It's well and truly started, hasn't it? The tribulation is at hand, for it is foretold in the prophecy that when the Daily Telegraph lieth down with the shadow minister for transport and the earth gives up its dead, there will be a battle between good and evil at the Windsor RSL in Western Sydney, and lo, there will be a great time of dullness across the land for 45 days and nights until the great decisioning. Incidentally, how many people here watched the debate on Sky News? Everybody, great. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't be there because I had a thing, but we do have someone in our audience who was. Can you make yourself known?
Here I am, Shaun, over here, with the beautiful wife of Adney.
And what was the atmosphere there like at the Windsor RSL on Friday?
Couldn't tell you, Shaun. We were out the back playing the pokies. Couldn't hear over the bloody music.
What a pity.
If Adney won $12 in half-price drinks vouchers.
Excellent. Anyway, according to all reliable accounts and even unreliable accounts like 9news.com, Bill Shorten won. And I think I know why. He's been in training in the lead up to the debate, talking at town halls all over the country to make sure that his message is short, sharp and to the point.
It's great for Chloe and I to be here at my 22nd town hall meeting.
See? He got an entire town hall meeting down to 20 seconds. Perfect for our lack of attention span when we're watching the news, particularly on Sky. Though it does beg the question, how does Bill fit the Labor Party's 100 policies into 20 seconds? Obviously, he has to pad them out a bit. But I think the real reason that Bill did so well is that he's a man of the people. He uses, to employ the vernacular of the Vox Populi, plain speaking. Here's Bill telling it like it is. No zingers, no highfalutin book-learning word talkage. Just a simple, easy-to-understand answer to why our manufacturing is moving offshore.
Before the Liberals got elected, there were 20 countries in the world who could build a car from woe to go.
Now, you might ask yourself, how do you build a car from woe to go? From the moment you stop building it to the moment you start building it. Well, that's Bill's point, you see. Getting it asked about was exactly the problem with our car industry in the first place. Now, some cynics out there might suggest that Bill just got the expression wrong. I mean, whoever runs Malcolm's website helpfully put the transcript up and raised this very point. But in order not to look too pedantic and elitist, misspelled the word woe, which was very generous of them. Thank you. Not that Labor are encouraging us all to speak like idiots. Labor's major campaign theme is education, after all. And this address by Bill to a group of teachers emphasises its importance.
You are the people to whom the parents trust our children to leave when they first have their days at school.
I believe he was kept back after that for some remedial study, which makes him very relatable. And this has been the case with Bill from day one. He was out there at the beginning of the campaign being very egalitarian. While Malcolm went to Yarralumla and hobnobbed it with Sir Peter, Bill went to the pub for a beer. And this plays well with the public, doesn't it? Extraordinarily average voter, Spore Clut.
Oh, yeah, good, thanks, Shaun.
And what does the imagery of Bill at the pub say to you?
He drinks beer, I drink beer. He's like me. I like me. I like him. I'll vote for him.
Well, you can't argue with those focus groups. Still, because of Bill coming across like an everyman, a lot of people say he's a bit dull on this campaign. I'm not so sure.
Will this country be a country that ensures that the fair go is for everyone, or that the fair go is just limited to the fortunate few?
What do you think?
I think it's only dull if you listen to the way he's talking.
Quite agree, Spore. If you listen to what he's saying, he's actually quite exciting.
I will fight this election to help create a vibrant economy, growing jobs with reasonable conditions.
See, he's not over-promising, not jobs with great conditions or even good conditions. What we want in our jobs are reasonable conditions. Sorry, Bill, I interrupted. Please go on. It was very interesting.
I will fight this election for health, hospitals and Medicare. I will fight this election for real action on climate change.
Yeah, I like the smile at the end there on climate change, like it's an old friend and not something that's going to kill us. It's a nice touch, very humanish. The message is clear. Bill is fighting this election. The question is, though, can he defeat it? And shouldn't he perhaps be fighting the government instead? And what happens if he defeats the government, not the election? Send your entries to Don't Bother Doing a Graphic for This. It's not a real, oh, you've already done it, care of the ABC. But what about Malcolm, or as some people like to call him...
Who are you?
Conducting on the train, you see.
Who are you? It's a very existential question, isn't it? Others like Peter Credlin here see him not so much as Mr. Who Are You as...
Mr. Harborside Mansion.
Peter Credlin, as you might remember, though, is very good friends with Mr. No Fixed Abode. But Malcolm's had a tough week. He's had to deal not only with how he's perceived, but also all this business about whether his name in the Panama Papers means anything, whether the government's proposed superannuation changes are retrospective, and Labor's claim that productivity immediately lifts by 2.8% when you boost education funding, and the Libs' counterclaim that it'd take place in 80 years' time. Campaign spokesperson and Finance Minister Matthias Cormann has dealt with most of these for Malcolm, and on the last one, he got for him very, very riled up. In fact, I've never seen him so angry.
Bill Shorten either doesn't understand how the economy works, he doesn't know how to read economic analysis, or he deliberately set out to mislead the Australian people.
Spokesperson for Matthias Cormann, Darius Horsham, why do we have to wait until 2095 to see the benefits of education funding?
Sean, the OECD data is very clear. By the year 2095, even the T3000 will be obsolete. Education will be a thing of the past. No more asking the teacher, oh, I want to go to the bathroom. There is no bathroom or teacher.
What about your proposed superannuation changes? Do they go back to 2007?
Sean, I'm not going to bullshit on your leg and tell you it's a brown kitten. Time displacement will not be possible until the year 2029, so it's nothing to worry about now. Jobs and growth is what you need to remember this election. And when I say jobs, I'm also including unpaid internships.
Yes. You're paying businesses a subsidy to employ people that they're not paying a wage to. Surely the fact that the workers are free would be incentive enough.
Top 1%ers provide the Cyberdyne system for economic growth in this country, which these free labour units will build on their behalf. We've already had a lot of interest from businesses about being able to legally hire labour that costs them nothing.
Yeah, what businesses?
Mainly 7-Eleven.
But what about this so-called... But what about the so-called Google tax for those mentioned in the Panama Papers who aren't Malcolm Turnbull? For example, the Wilson Group, who run Wilson Security, who run the detention centres on Nauru and receive $400 million worth of contracts from the Australian government. Should they be allowed to pay only 1% tax on their income in the Virgin Islands? Disgraced businessman and mad as hell tax expert Davey Plum?
Fair enough, I say. You get a company to look after your offshore detention centre. It's only fair they get to look after their money in an offshore tax haven.
You know, I've never really understood this. What's the difference between tax evasion and tax avoidance?
Sean, tax evasion is a bit like the way I'm going to be evading your question now. But if I wanted to avoid it, I just wouldn't have turned up for the interview in the first place.
Darius, can you give me a straight answer on this?
Davey is absolutely right, Sean. Tax evasion is like when I am chasing you through the sewers on a motorcycle with a shotgun. Yes. Whereas tax avoidance is when I'm hunting you down in a mental facility and shooting holes in the wall while you're somewhere hiding under a desk like a crybaby, pussy, economic girly man.
Yes, that's a lot clearer. Thank you very much indeed, Darius.
Fantastic.
Still to come later in the week.
The federal government has a mandate to investigate things the police are already doing. We want you to run the revised Australian Building and Construction Commission.
Loved.
One woman.
My mother was crushed by an RSJ on a corrupt building site, and I still bear the scars for all to see. So don't you talk to me about exposition.
16 deputy commissioners.
I don't want you to look at me like I'm a woman. I don't want you to look at me like I'm a man. I'm just like the rest of you. It doesn't matter. So does this job.
$150 million a year to fund.
Orphanages like this one are likely to contain asbestos.
Maybe my boys will be on the go slow before it's all removed in time. All depends on what you can corrupt me with.
You'll find my wallet in my bra.
She's wearing a goddamn wire. Ringo! I'll ring the ombudsman.
Subpoena them, boys. There'll be plenty of time to go slow while they're giving evidence at the commission.
Look, Mr. Ombudsman, we've got the problem with nuns.
Enid Swink. Coming soon.
Welcome back. We've been examining some very hot-button election issues this show, but let's try now to push the seized lever of offshore processing, which is currently receiving a lot of bipartisan this during the campaign. Labor's inertia monitor, Clark Flatworst, how do you reconcile the party line with the fact that, 16 members of your party disagree with it?
Well, Sean, of course we disagree with offshore processing, but we don't want people risking their lives to get to this country, which is exactly what will happen if we say we're going to treat them humanely if they manage it. So we pretend we'll be inhumane to them if they try and come here for their own safety. Obviously, if we get voted in, we'll be a lot less inhumane to them than the present government.
All right. And you'll close Nauru and Manus Island?
It's a bit hard to answer that genuinely, Shaun, because of the message we might send.
Well, MasterChef's probably running over, so no one's watching.
Well, they might be watching on iView later. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to go with a no on the question of closing down the centres. We remain firmly committed to offshore processing.
Spokes being for the Immigration Minister, Peter Dutton-Merglin, you differ from Labor in that you actually believe in your policy, don't you?
Oh, kind of, Shaun. Obviously, Manus Island is illegal and we'll have to close that after the election, and Nauru has problems we haven't even thought about solving yet. But until then, it's not so much pretending that we care about the safety of these people as it is about pretending that these people might pose a threat to national security. It's a far more effective campaign ploy.
All right, so despite all the posturing, you'll eventually treat the refugees humanely as well.
Yeah, humanely.
Thank you, Merglin. Of course, PNG's Supreme Court ruling that the Manus Island Detention Centre is illegal has led to neither Australia nor the PNG being willing to take responsibility for the asylum seekers. So the ruling has rather left detainees feeling like people who couldn't get to a Coldplay concert, uncertain as to whether they're lucky or unlucky. But Sebastian Munge from the Institute of Unchartered Accountants, you've come up with a potential solution.
Yes, Shaun. What I'm proposing is that we take back the 850 men from Manus Island and negative gear them against our annual refugee intake.
And HTF, would that work?
Well, Shaun, what we'd do is we would borrow the asylum seekers from Manus Island and use them to set up an onshore processing facility in Australia.
Yes.
Now, the damage then done to our border protection policy would be greater than the humanitarian benefit derived from it, thus resulting in a net loss of political capital, which we could then claim as a deduction against our annual refugee intake.
Isn't that refugee evasion?
No. It's only refugee avoidance.
Well, Sebastian raises a very, very interesting issue there. And Sebastian, I hope you do stay with us as we examine it further in our Mad As debate.
Mad As debate.
The philosophical...
I've got to go. The parking meters are only 15 minutes around here.
The philosophical tug-of-war between wealth and creation and access to luxuries like a roof over your head might prove to be the making point of this election. On the offhand, we have the hands-off approach to negative gearing, which makes the Australian dream of owning your own investment property a reality. Whereas on the second hand, having to live within your means without a tax break means less property speculation, falling house prices and the fact that you might be able to afford to buy a home to actually live in. Fabiana Bastian, you're a Liberal voter and live in a rented flat but service a loan on an investment property by negative gearing.
Yeah, I don't understand it either, Shaun. All I know is that my 8-month-old daughter is a landlord, and if I couldn't afford to write off my losses through negative gearing, I wouldn't be able to lease the property I live in.
Yes, but rent would be lower if house prices were lower, which is what will happen if they get rid of negative gearing.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm voting for Labor then.
Yes, it's an interesting point, isn't it, Casper Jonquill?
Never mind that. Why doesn't someone do something about my self-funded super? My investments in that BHP tailings dam in Brazil have gone through the floor. My whole portfolio is like a Hollywood Botox clinic. Every day there's a new bottom.
Yes, and why did Chris Bowen shave his beard off?
Plus $15 million to infect European carp with herpes is ridiculous. I would have done it for nothing.
Perhaps you didn't play well with the focus group.
I told the Purana task force that I could arrange for the carp to sleep with the fishes, but they said, oh, it's got nothing to do with us.
Yes, and it gave him the illusion of a chin.
And what about Fox News? I watched it for 90 minutes last night. There wasn't one mention of a single fox. It's like that singer, Sia. She's called Sia, but you can't.
Well, unfortunately, we appear to have lost contact with Casper there. Still to come, right now, news from countries that aren't Australia.
News from countries that aren't Australia.
Brought to you by the Colour Me Canberra colouring book. The perfect way to unwind and melt away the stress while creating something wonderful. Available at the ABC shop online.
Well, the world's oldest person, Susanna Mouche-Jones, has died at the age of 116 in New York City, which means...
The new oldest known person in the world is now Emma Morano Martinuzzi, who's also 116 years old and lives in Italy.
Ms Martinuzzi said the secret to becoming the world's oldest person was the previous record holder dying. To the South Pole now, and a win this week in the international war on drugs, with the CSIRO announcing plans to close its ice lab in Antarctica. A wise move, in my opinion. Move back to Australia where the distribution is cheaper, streamline the operation, cut out the middle penguin. And before you judge the CSIRO for selling crystal meth, ask yourself, what would you do if you faced the funding cuts that they've had to? Anyway, it's not as if they haven't trafficked in illicit soul-destroying substances before, as anyone who's eaten a bowl of barley max will tell you. Revelations of Australian involvement in the Unioil scandal have rocked the federal government, primarily because no unionists appear to have been implicated. Overseas authorities have also heavily criticised ASIC and the Australian Federal Police for their failure to effectively fight foreign bribery. Commissioner Payne from the AFP, since the year 2000 you've launched approximately 36 of these sorts of investigations and 34 of them have led to no prosecutions. WTF?
Well, the reason for that, Shaun, is of course our no pursuit policy.
I thought that only applied to high-speed car chasers.
You know, no, the no pursuit policy can apply in a range of circumstances. The Unioil case is a highly complex matter, and we considered there was an unacceptable risk that our officers would not be able to work out what the freak was going on.
And under what other circumstances could the no pursuit policy be invoked?
If we can't be asked.
Thank you. And finally, Japan is set to build the world's first invisible train. The train will apparently, or not apparently, be covered with a semi-reflective surface, giving the locomotive a ghost train look or non-look. It'd be a great addition to the PM's Smart Cities plan to have a whole invisible train system, wouldn't you think? Mind you, I can't see it happening. Still to come.
Boat to be used to transport 5 Australians to Indonesia to join Islamic State to be returned to Melbourne under federal government's towback policy. Bill Shorten's Labor bus in editing metaphor for election hopes. And the Christian Family Values Party spells out its election platform.
So why do we need a national porn filter?
To get rid of the ads. I just want pure hardcore porn.
Dad didn't remember things in great detail, but I do remember him saying it was pretty warm. About 170 degrees Celsius, I think, for 40 minutes, and then cool.
The Making of an Anzac, Sunday, 3:30.
Welcome back. Well, police have commissioned a task force to target the criminal activities of a gang known as Apex. Now, for sure, they certainly seem to have been involved in some violence and public brawling and assaults and some carjackings. And you can focus on the negative aspects of Apex if you want. But what about the positive stuff? Helping the elderly, medical research sponsorship, outreach to the homeless, sausage sizzles. All I'm saying is let's not forget about the good work that these people do when they're not juiced up. Well, to politics again, and they say that politics makes strange bedfellows. Well, who can forget Malcolm Fraser joining with the Greens, or when Cheryl Kernot cosied up to Labor? Remember when Billy Hughes moved in with the Conservatives in 1916? And didn't tongues wag when John Howard became a card-carrying member of the Australian Sex Party? Anyway, the Greens are looking around for a coalition partner and have set their cap for Labor, who are typically playing hard to get.
Tell them they're dreaming.
But the Greens, who you'd think would know the meaning of the word no, still have a sort of bunny-boiling hope.
Sometimes dreams come true.
Matchmaker Dolly Levi, any chance these two can get together again?
Why, Mr. Micallef, are you kidding? Labour and the Greens were made for each other and they know it. Didn't you see Bill Shorten's vacant expression when he was speaking?
Well, he always looks like that.
Oh, he's proud as all. The Greens went off with the Liberals and he's hurt. Who wouldn't be? It's human nature. You got a little bit of schmutz there.
Oh, I see.
If your ex-fiancé went and voted with some guy to shelve the ABCC and then push Senate voting reform through, wouldn't you be a little put out? Put out? Oh, Dolly, you're so incorrigible. Oh, God.
No. But But isn't it more serious than that? They're going after Anthony Albanese's seat in Grangler.
Oh, that old thing. Why, Mr. Micallef, as my late husband Ephraim Levi used to say, when a peacock tries to swallow a live monkey, he's only doing it for attention.
No, please, no. But there's talk of a preference deal with the Libs, isn't there?
Oh, Mr. Micallef, if you filled that pretty little head of yours with the nonsense people say, you'd have no room for your own thoughts, now would you? So the Greens slept with the Libs a few times. They've come back more experienced. What are Labour afraid of, apart from a dose of something a few shots of penicillin can't take care of anyway? You think the relationship between the Nats and the Libs is a bed of nails? Let me tell you, when that nice Mr. What's-his name was in China promising them everything except for the Kidman Ranch and that deranged lunatic
Barnaby Joyce
was in charge of the country, you think there wasn't a little tension? Trust me, if it means winning power, Labour and the Greens will be at it like coked-up weasels before you can say political expediency.
No, please, don't. Goodbye, Dolly. Coming up a bit later on from the Favelodrome in Rio, Maggie Bathysphere and team with the latest sports being trialled for the Games. Bareback skeet shooting, involuntary diving, capsicum spray dodging, witch hat hurling, the burning of infected uniforms and, of course, the 100-metre dysentery. Speaking of Rio, have a look at this. It's appalling, isn't it? The quality of the effigy, I mean. Looks nothing like ex-President Dilma Rousseff. On the other hand, look at this one of hopefully non-President Donald Trump. Fantastic, but compare it with this closer-to-home one of Christopher Pine.
Because I'm
See, no head exploding. They've got a squirt lighter fluid on it so it burns. I mean, yes, they managed to capture the two-dimensional quality he has, but where's the craftsmanship? Hecuba Probable tries to find out.
So what I do is I paper mache this, then from there build the ground up. So this starts as human, and then I think it's very important that the effigy resemble the person as much as possible. I mean, it's no good tying a bunch of rags together and saying it's Barnaby Joyce. Actually, that's a bad example.
Maureen Shostakovich has been making effigies of hated figures since her Whitlam-funded university days. But she denies her work is political.
Well, I try to be as non-partisan as possible. As you can see, I've also done Tony Abbott, John Howard, of course, Kevin Andrews, Howard again, Christopher Pine and Albo there, and Bill Heffernan. Actually, the EPA had to be called out for that one. Howard again, George Christensen, Philip Ruddock, and, of course, Clive Palmer.
Unlike real politics, though, it's not all about the surface. What's inside is just as important.
Well, combustibility is vital. I try and stuff my work with the most flammable material I can find, soft toys from China, generally. 8 to 10 Kung Fu Panda knockoffs, and you got yourself a very incendiary torso. And for the head, then, I just fill with toilet tissue and old newspaper. Or both, in the case of the Herald Sun.
Maureen is at her busiest around election time, and it's no surprise that she's working on a new commission. She can't say too much about who it is, although from certain angles it looks a lot like Warren Entsch.
No, it isn't Warren Entsch. He's less defined. No, this is the battle for UN Secretary-General.
I ask her if it's going to be Helen Clark. She tells me off the record that it is and that Kevin Rudd is paying for it. He and Therese are going to take it to New York and light it up on the Dar Hammarskjöld Plaza if the former New Zealand PM wins. Have you ever done Kevin Rudd?
I did, yes. It was when he was PM and he backed down on climate change, though. He's so vain. He came in and sat for it himself. Actually, it turned out well. In fact, so well that on the day, the organisers have set fire to Kevin himself. Oh, there are a few red faces, let me tell you. Mostly Kevin's. And that was mostly due to the flames, but no serious damage. Because as we know, Kevin is quite a serious retardant.
Well, not coming up because Eddie Perfect's on in a minute.
Thermomix users advised to only use the explode setting when absolutely necessary. Former politician Peter Garrett's solo single, not the first time a former federal minister has transitioned into the world of music. And President Obama cops foul-mouthed spray from Queen.
Finally, a national study into childhood health suggests 30,000 Australian children may now be severely obese. It's disturbing news for those children and their families, but obviously fantastic news for the producers of The Biggest Loser, who, by the way, I would like to defend against the politically correct brigade, who say they are humiliating overweight people for our entertainment, because if you've ever sat down and actually watched the program, you know that it's clearly not entertainment. Goodbye.
Jive, baby.